So, something I've noticed at many of the amateur piano meetups and concerts that I've been to is when you see a program in advance, it's often incredibly impressive as to what repertoire has been selected. It's usually an array of pieces that even professional musicians would find difficult, let alone amateurs. But so often the performances are far less impressive. And I think what's happening is people are generally just playing pieces that are too difficult. Now, I don't necessarily mean too difficult in terms of their ability to play. In many cases, they may very well have it within their ability to play these pieces. But certainly for amateurs, in terms of they're too difficult in terms of the amount of time that they have to practice them. Because obviously this is limited and certain things just take a certain amount of time to practice. Now, I say this like I'm talking about other people, but I am guilty as charged. I'm actually talking about myself very much here as well. And I realized I realized this about a year ago. I decided I wanted to play the Chopin Second Ballad, and I played the first a long time ago. There's much debate as to which is more difficult, so I thought, yeah, let me learn the Second Ballad. It's the one that goes like this. That bit seems relatively easy, but then it's got this sort of fiendishly difficult section, and then also the coda. Those repeated notes. And what I realized is that maybe it was within my ability to play the piece, but not with practicing 20 minutes a day, 3 or 4 days a week specifically on that piece. And expecting to play it at a reasonable standard within, say, 2 or 3 months. And I did play it at a concert, and people were nice about it because I mean maybe it was a fairly courageous attempt given the circumstances, but I certainly didn't do the piece any justice, and I don't think it was nice to listen to. In fact, I think it was actually quite hideous. While there's nothing wrong with the occasional wrong note, and even sometimes fairly messy performances can be exhilarating, I think the only real achievement there was I played probably slightly more right notes than I played wrong notes. And, there was just nothing musical about it. And, it just felt like I'd actually done the piece of music a disservice. So why does this happen? So I've noticed it almost like a subconscious arms race, if you like, and where what happens is I don't think people are trying to show off. In fact, barring a few exceptions, I think most people, that's not what they want to do at all. It's more about this idea that every time somebody plays something a bit more difficult, a bit more challenging, everyone else seems to feel that there's an increasing level as to what is acceptable in that forum and environment. And I think as pianists, we like a challenge, and a lot of the pieces that we've always wanted to play are very challenging pieces of music. So that immediately sort of ups the level, and then what also happens is we underestimate the attainment gap. What I mean by that is what we're able to achieve in the comfort of our own homes under perfect circumstances versus right there, right now in the spot. So if a piece of music you can play at 90% for illustrative purposes at home, and 70% well enough in a concert, maybe that's going to be still something that's going to be nice for you in terms of your confidence and nice for people to listen to. But if you can only just make 70% at home, it's probably going to be 40% in a concert, and maybe that's not going to be the most edifying experience for you or everyone else there. So I think, even if what you're trying to play is not overly ambitious in your practice time, it may very well be if you're trying to share your music with other people. And I think that is important, though, because I think that sharing your playing with other people is a really wonderful thing to do. Playing by yourself all the time is also pleasurable, but can be very insular. And I think there's a great joy in playing for other people and listening to other people play. The impact of this, I think there's a lot of unintended consequences. As I said, I don't think people are trying to show off. But what does tend to happen is it makes it daunting for people at lower, playing easier pieces to participate and puts them off. I mean, would you really want to go and play your Petzold Minuet, which you can play very well, if everyone else is playing Chopin etudes, Rachmaninoff preludes, and so on. What also happens is you then get a few types of pianists as well, where they play the same piece again and again and again. But in the audience, if somebody plays something well, I don't mind. I actually quite like listening to something again. But I think for the pianist, it can be a bit boring, and you can end up easily in a rut if you, after 1 or 2 years, only play 1 or 2 pieces. It also, or what happens is that you only play once every 2 or 3 years, which means you're not really participating as much as you may like to, and you're not getting that encouragement and enthusiasm. The other thing that happens there is, by only playing a few pieces, is you're missing out on loads of great music, and also by playing things that are too difficult, we're missing out on all of the things that so many things that are really worth playing. It's absolutely absurd to think that that all of the pieces that are nice to play or nice to listen to are grade 8 plus. It's just not the case. The other thing that happens as well is that there ends up being a very incorrect focus on technical difficulty and prowess, and not music making, not communicating a personal message, not expressing something. And what we do is this fear of looking bad and ego stands in the way of serving the music, which is what this really should be about. And so we tend to then be far more worried about wrong notes, about technical proficiency, at the expense of the musical message and meaning. So what this focus on technical prowess does, at the expense of music making, is it also leads to a distorted idea of what difficulty actually is. And so, yes, having jumps all over the keyboard, or fast scale passages, or double notes, these things are technically difficult. But even a piece that is easy to play in terms of playing the right notes in the right order at the right speed may have subtle hidden difficulties. And these are important to master if one is going to create something that is musically satisfying. So I noticed this a number of years ago. I was playing a Beethoven sonata, the first sonata, Opus 2, number 1. And it's got the last movement, which I think everyone knows is quite difficult. Everyone thinks that that's very difficult, and it is. And I haven't really practiced that in years. So, but I was playing the second movement, which goes like this. And I had a sense of being incredibly exposed when I realized that every note could be examined and scrutinized and was obvious. There was no hiding. And it wasn't just about playing the right notes, but also when you're playing something that's soft, what's often difficult is to make sure that every note sounds and that all of the notes are balanced in relation to each other. And I think I realized with that subsequent performances, obviously, yes, I spent a lot of time practicing this, all of that, and you can drill that and get that right. But I resolved not to underestimate the slow movement, and realized that I actually found that more challenging. So beyond just getting the notes right and some of the technical challenges where something sounds nice, there's also the challenge of creating something special and creating something musically meaningful. And a while back, I played 2 pieces in a meetup, and the one was something that was, I think, technically quite difficult. It was a piece by Brahms, And the other that I decided to play was the Schumann Romance that he wrote for Clara when they were dating, which goes like this. Now, I was actually asked by somebody afterwards where they said, oh, it was a really nice piece that you played, and I thought you played it very nicely, but why did you choose something so easy? The thing is, it's not easy. Yes, perhaps it has a lot of black notes, and that can be daunting for some people. If you don't find that daunting, yes, the notes are quite easy. It falls on the hand quite nicely, there's some patterns, and it's not very fast. But shaping the melody lines and creating something that's really beautiful is not easy. There's voicing that's difficult. For example, in the middle section, there's... Now that falls short of what I wanted, of how I would like to, or the standard which I'd like to achieve when I'm playing it. It wasn't voiced as nicely as I'd like. The colour wasn't right. The left hand, there's so much that could be better with that. And that looked pretty easy because it was only a few notes played at the same time. So hopefully that illustrates my point, and that even the easiest seeming pieces are actually really tricky can be really tricky to play, and well, not just can be tricky to play, but it's always a challenge to create something musically meaningful. Some of the best performances that I've heard have been by people who've been less confident in terms of their technical prowess, and I think actually that means that they've got less rope with which they hang themselves, but have had the courage, despite all of this indirect pressure with everyone playing increasingly difficult pieces, to play something that they're comfortable playing. One of the most enjoyable performances that I heard was somebody playing a grade 5 piece, but they played it with incredible sensitivity, and it was really just wonderful to listen to. The other concert that but the other performance that was also memorable for me was somebody played a piece literally out of grade 1 of one of the, I think, Trinity or ABRSM examination syllabuses. But they played it with flair and with the joy, and I think, you know, if you want to see technical prowess, go to the Barbican or go to or you know, we can't go to a concert right now, I suppose, so go to YouTube and watch a concert pianist play. That's not what but it's a different type of thing that we're doing as amateurs, and what is far more important is that we're experiencing joy when we're playing, and that's what I want to see when I go to something like that. I want to see people and share their joy at making music in that kind of environment. And the wonderful thing about that is you do not have to be Ashkenazi or Evgeny Kissin to be able to achieve that. But you do perhaps need to be a bit more realistic in terms of the repertoire that you choose and its level in relation to your abilities and the time you have to play. So how to avoid this situation? Well, it might seem really obvious, but one should just play easier pieces. Now, this is easier said than done, and I fell into exactly the same trap, even after this realization I had with the Chopin Second Ballad, which I mentioned earlier. I immediately went about choosing a piece that turns out is actually quite difficult. And it's the Brahms Rhapsody No. 1, Opus 79, which goes like this. Now, the piece probably is within my ability to play, but it's also taken a lot longer than I expected to learn, and it falls apart in a lesson. So it's certainly not something that the good people of my piano meetup deserve to have inflicted upon them, and it wouldn't be doing justice to Brahms either. But I've decided I am going to continue learning it, but I don't want to be stuck in a rut where this is literally the only piece I play for the foreseeable future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix it up a bit. Now, this also would seem obvious, but I've tended to, like I think many other pianists, probably because we're just used to doing a grade or working towards a graded exam or something like that on a regular basis, is I choose repertoire that's all of a similar level. And I was quite surprised because a set of pieces that I chose that I just thought I'd would be the next group of pieces that I decide to learn, I went and looked at one of the examination board syllabi, and they were literally all on the same level, or prescribed for the same level. Now, if you're playing an exam, obviously you need to make sure that you've chosen from the syllabus, but I'm not, so there's no need for me to play everything at the same level. So, simple suggestion, if there is something that one wants to play that is more challenging, is just to choose a range of pieces at different levels of difficulty. And then in terms of choosing pieces that are easier, there's a few ways of doing this. I mean, if you know what grade you are roughly, or if you know that there are pieces, let's say, at a certain level, then just maybe try things that are 1 or 2 levels below that. And you can use the examination as guides. I think the other thing that I was quite surprised by, I was recently working on a project creating resources for the new ABRSM syllabus, and I was amazed at how many new pieces there are, even at like grades like 2, 3, and 4, that are really, really fun to play and really interesting to play. And so, even if you're not at, say, grade 8 level, or if you're at a more intermediate level, there will be things that are simpler than the level pieces that you usually play at are, that are worth playing. And I think there's so much music to explore. There's the Bach and Magdalena Notebook. There's various the albums for Young, Schumann, Tchaikovsky, and all of that. And I think another way of looking at it is if you have a performance at a certain date, or you have a goal to work towards, and that's a great way of learning a piece, helps you be more focused. If you work back and you say, well, okay, by week 2, I feel like I should be able to play the first page hands together, sort of at maybe 80% of the tempo, and you can't, well, then maybe technically that piece is a little bit too difficult for you. So you could just use that kind of a thing as a guideline. The other thing that you can do is, I think most importantly, is to always be aware of what it is that you're trying to achieve. It shouldn't be about showing off something. If there are skills that you need to learn to play a piece, well, those are a means to an end. But ultimately, you should be asking yourself, can I play this piece in a way that brings me joy? And am I likely to be able to do that to a reasonable standard for others? And that's really what this is all about. Every piece that you play, no matter what level of difficulty it is a chance for you to be part of something much bigger than yourself and to share something really special and personal. And that's what we should be aiming to do, rather than being caught up in the technical proficiencies and challenges.